In the year 2000, the number of photos preserved on film peaked at 85 billion, and two companies dominated the market. I'm sure you can name them: Fujifilm and Kodak. By 2007, 94% of the world's information, including photos, was stored digitally, and the demand for photographic film was nowhere to be found. As the pendulum swung from the analog to the digital, only one of the two giants made it out alive. This is the story of that giant. I'm Marilyn, the CEO and founder of Cosmic Centaurs, and you're listening to the 7th episode of the 3rd season of our live video series called Centaur Stage. We are picking up where we left off last summer. We really feel like these episodes are perfect for the summer slowdown and a great source of inspiration. It is ingrained in human nature to love a good story. And in my years of experience and learning, I collected a number of stories from companies and leaders who've either succeeded brilliantly or failed tragically, and the lessons from these stories. In our 3rd season, we dive deep into tales of triumph and tragedy, sharing lessons learned from companies and leaders who faced incredible challenges. Today, we're telling a story of navigating the tides of change. We're telling the story of Fujifilm, its collapse, and its visionary reinvention, taking the film out of Fujifilm. Our story begins in 1934 in Tokyo, Japan, when a man named Shojiro Asai founded a company called Fuji Photofilm Co. Fuji was a subsidiary of the chemical company Daisel and was backed by the Japanese government. The company emerged during the Showa era of Japan, characterized by aggressive policies of military, imperial, and industrial expansion post-World War I and in the lead-up to World War II. Simply put, Japan wanted to be the best at everything, and this included the burgeoning photographic film industry. Asai, the founder of Fuji, was determined to build the foundation upon which Fuji would climb to new peaks. And he led with innovation, unknowingly creating the catalyst for Fujifilm's reinvention 75 years later. But I get ahead of myself. In 1936, 2 years after Fuji was founded, the company ventured into manufacturing film for X-ray machines used in hospitals. Shortly after, the company diversified its offering by branching into new territories: optical glasses, lenses, medical equipment, electronic imaging, magnetic materials. In the 60s, it introduced its first camera with the Fujica series, which was known for great quality and user-friendly design. And in 1962, it joined forces with Xerox, entering the photocopier and document solutions market. The 70s and 80s brought even more innovation. Fujifilm launched the world's first digital X-ray machine in Japan. They expanded into digital radiography, endoscopy, healthcare IT markets. And on the film photography side, they started offering SLR, medium format cameras. They even brought the first disposable 35mm camera to market and marketed the world's very first fully digital camera, perhaps a bit ahead of its time, in 1988. Now, while it was Fujifilm that first took this bold market leap, it's worth noting that Kodak, its American rival, had actually invented the digital camera technology itself in 1975, and you can learn more about that in a previous episode of Centaur Stage. Now back to Fuji. As the millennium came in, the company knew that it would bring in game-changing technological revolution, and so they entered the 2000s with caution. As the digital wave began to wash over the traditional film industry, Fujifilm would face an existential crisis. And the man who would steer the company through these turbulent waters was Shigetaka Komori. Komori was born in 1939, graduated in 1963 from Tokyo University. Right out of college, he joined the then expanding Fujifilm and worked his way up the corporate ladder. As Fujifilm experimented and learned, so did Komori. taking up interest in media recording and graphic systems, he was ultimately appointed as managing director in 1996. Now, prior to taking that position, Komori was given an assignment by his predecessor to investigate the impact of digitalization and how it would affect their business and their technology. He was tasked with creating a detailed report that would predict where the industry was headed, essentially marking the starting line for his time as managing director and later CEO. Komori said, "I couldn't help but feel that that special assignment had been a kind of message." In 2003, he is appointed CEO just as the company is grappling with the harsh realities of the digital era. You might remember I said that film photography was at an all-time peak at the beginning of the 2000s. But as Komori remembers, a peak always conceals a treacherous valley. Komori inherited a company at a crossroads. First, the market began shrinking slowly and then picked up a little bit of speed, but then it plunged, declining at the rate of 20-30% a year. Film kiosks that once processed 5,000 films per day found themselves processing 1,000 or less. In 2010, the worldwide demand for film had fallen to less than 10% of what it had been 10 years prior. With film sales plummeting, Komori knew Fujifilm's survival depended on radical transformation. Unlike his peers, Komori was not content with mere cost-cutting measures. He envisioned a complete overhaul of Fujifilm's business model, pivoting the company from its reliance on photographic film to new and extremely diversified ventures. In 2004, Komori unveiled Vision 75, a 6-year strategic plan named in honor of Fujifilm's 75th anniversary. It was an ambitious blueprint, and it aimed to save Fujifilm from the brink of disaster and ensure that it would remain a leading and viable company with a very clear goalpost of 2 to 3 trillion yen of revenue. That's roughly 15 to 25 billion US dollars. Komori understood that in order to deliver on this vision, he'd have to think holistically and look towards the future. He said, somehow, Fujifilm had to be kept alive as an enterprise that meant something to society. The lives of more than 70,000 employees worldwide and their families were on the line. And with Vision 75 in hand, Komori got to work. Now, that vision had 3 core pillars: implementing structural reforms, one has to reform, building new growth strategy, and enhancing consolidated management. So let's deep dive into these 3 pillars, starting with, of course, the structural reforms. The first thing Komori did was, you guessed it, he downsized the company as it made this rough turn into the digital era. He restructured the film business, downscaled production lines, closed redundant facilities. He actually had to reduce the company's workforce by more than 5,000 employees and managed to cut operating costs by a staggering $500 million. Now, that left him with a bit of cash to do new things. So let's see how he went about it. The other structural reform related to research and development. As you may recall, Fujifilm had always been, at its core, an innovative company. And so the future of that company would also sit with its ability to innovate. Komori placed a very strong emphasis on research and development, and he recognized that innovation would be key to the company's survival. He restructured the R&D department. He moved everybody into a newly built facility, and he unified research efforts. He wanted to promote a culture of communication and innovation amongst the engineers. And this reorganization included a thorough audit of Fujifilm's technological asset. Even before he had initiated Vision 75, he asked the head of R&D to assess their technological assets and compare them against global market demands. They went through a very thorough audit that lasted a year and a half, and the R&D team made a comprehensive chart that detailed all the in-house technologies that had potential applications in emerging markets. And this inventory was crucial in identifying opportunities for Pillar 2 around diversification and growth. So after cost-cutting comes growth, and Komori's vision included a very bold strategy to diversify their business portfolio. But that was based on capabilities. internal capabilities. Komori saw that Fujifilm's technologies could be adapted for emerging markets. He wanted to go into pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and highly functional materials. I want us to pause here for a second. When I teach my students this case study, I always say, what do you think Fujifilm did to survive? And their faces when I tell them that they turned into a cosmetics company is always a sight for sore eyes. Because for a film company, it might sound a little bit odd. How would one go from here to there? So let's zoom in a bit. In his book, Komori explains that in addition to film formation, high precision coating, there are grain formulation, function polymer, nanodispersion, functional molecules, redox control, oxidation. Inherent in all of this is very precise engineering and quality control. Now, all of those words are a bit complicated to pronounce, and I'm not sure I know what all of them mean. But what this definitely means is that Fujifilm had some greatly differentiated capabilities. A vice president of Kodak from 97 to 2003, Willie Shih, further corroborates this complexity. He says, color film was an extremely complex product to manufacture. It had to be coated with 24 layers of sophisticated chemicals, photosynthesizers, dyes, couplers, other materials, deposited at precise thicknesses while traveling at 300 feet per minute. Now, that's pretty crazy because those are pretty good capabilities, but how to transform them? And the genius of Komori was in recognizing that they could take those capabilities and turn them into something new. He was thinking outside the box, and he recognized similarities between, for example, photographic film and skincare. Let's talk about them. First off, oxidation. The common culprit behind fading photographs and aging skin is oxidation. The company's research in antioxidation technology for film was really useful. They focused on an antioxidant called astaxanthin, and this very stubborn compound wasn't water soluble, and it created a challenge for cosmetic formulation and safety. But their film technology offered a solution. They employed emulsification, a process tried and tested in film, and they were able to stabilize that molecule and enhance its skin penetrating activities. The second is collagen. I think we all know about collagen these days. This was in the early 2000s, and the Fuji team realized that the very same ingredient that makes up, again, a significant chunk of photographic film is also a staple of anti-aging cosmetics. Collagen and its derivative were not only essential for our skin's elasticity and hydration, they also comprised a huge part of color film. And guess what? Fujifilm had years of research on collagen, and they were able to identify the best type of collagen for retaining skin moisture. This allowed them to enter the cosmetics and skincare market in 2007 with their line Astrolift, starting with Japan, then extending to China and Europe and beyond. That was one example. Let me give you another. In other demonstrations of exceptional foresight, the company anticipated the rise of LCD screens. They made substantial investments in that area. They used their expertise in film technologies and developed Fujitac, a high-performance film crucial for manufacturing LCD panels for TVs, computers, phones. And fast forward 20 years, Fujitac now has 70% of the market for protective LCD polarizer films. Now, these examples are just there to demonstrate that great turnarounds aren't just about cutting costs. And Vision 75 knew that. Komori's vision knew that. Many people would have us think it's just about restructuring and cutting costs, but great turnarounds are about restructuring strategically and rethinking how differentiating capabilities and talented people can be reallocated to create value and develop new competitive advantage. Now, I'll take a pause here for a little bit of a plug, but if you wanted to spend more time understanding how to manage great turnarounds, you can listen to a great session that we had with our friends from Tandem at our 2023 Cosmic Conference. The team will drop the links here and in the show notes, and it's a really beautiful story of how to structure restructuring. Now back to Fujifilm. Next up on the diversification agenda was inorganic growth. Wherever internal technologies were insufficient to meet the demands of emerging markets, the company pursued mergers and acquisitions. Let's take their healthcare division, for example. In 2008, Fujifilm acquired Toyoma Chemical for 1.5 billion, bolstering its healthcare and medical imaging division. And this move marked a significant step in expanding their presence. In 2012, they further expanded by acquiring Sonosite, which is the leading provider in the point-of-care ultrasound market. And most recently, in 2021, Fujifilm acquired Hitachi Diagnostics Imaging, cementing that position. By acquiring these established companies and integrating their capabilities with their own expertise, the Japanese firm could swiftly and efficiently introduce new products to the market. And today, Fujifilm's healthcare division is its largest, contributing over 32% of the company's annual revenue and profits, where imaging solutions are now only 14%. Okay, we get it. The man had an impressive ability to reimagine the capabilities of the company and transform them into the cash cows of tomorrow. But we all know one person can never pull this kind of turnaround alone. So let's take a plunge into the human side of the story. This is the part of the story that Centaurs live for and revel in retelling. The story of a holistic leader building an organizational system where people are encouraged and rewarded to do the best work. Under Komori's Vision 75 plan, Fujifilm not only focused on strategic acquisitions, technological advancements, it also underwent significant internal transformation. This approach emphasized the importance of, I said it earlier, consolidated management, but also a cultural shift within the company. I want to tell you about 4 things that Komori did to transform the culture of the organization. First off, structure. Komori divided the company into 3 distinct group entities: Fujifilm Corporation, Fuji Xerox, and Toyama Chemical. Each of these catered to specific operations and different industries. Now, supporting these, there was the Fujifilm Business Expert Corporation, which provided essential functions: PR, corporate planning, HR, CSR, R&D across all 3 groups. Now, this shared services approach is not new to most of you. We hear about that a lot, and sometimes it is successful and sometimes it isn't. The goal of it was to ensure that resources would flow seamlessly across the group, that they could optimize efficiency and cost effectiveness. But the goal was also to enable a dynamic exchange of ideas and technology amongst the companies, fostering that culture of collaboration and innovation. And a key aspect of this unified strategy was emphasizing on robust governance structure. Komori strengthened corporate governance by enhancing transparency, accountability, improving decision-making processes in order to build trust with stakeholders and ensure effective execution of the initiatives. That's not to say that shared services structures are all rainbows and butterflies. The fact that they didn't have divisional referees could sometimes complicate allocation of budgets, recruitment priorities, you name it. And also, if unchecked, influence from one of the business units could sow seeds of internal politics and favoritisms amongst the group. It might get to a point where there were too many cooks in the kitchen. But Komori led skillfully. He balanced the interests of the 3 companies' groups, and his approach came to be known as the Fujifilm way. That takes us to the second piece, the cultural transformation. The Fujifilm way was rooted in continuous improvement, employee respect, environmental sustainability. When he became CEO, Komori initiated a culture shift towards innovation, collaboration. This set the stage for exchange of ideas and a surge in creative energy. Values such as courage, rational decision-making, an unwavering pursuit of innovative technologies through collaboration took center stage, while the pressure to provide immediate shareholder gratification and short-term returns took a backseat. This shift was essential for Fujifilm to respond effectively to the new challenges and opportunities in the market, and it birthed some of its innovations that we mentioned earlier: Astalift, LCD screens, and others. Komori's leadership emphasized the importance of a customer-centric and employee-focused culture. He believed that happy and motivated employees would lead to satisfied customers, ultimately benefiting shareholders. This philosophy was reflected in so many of the company's policies, including profit-sharing plans, initiatives to promote work-life balance and employee well-being. And while this all may sound pretty typical by today's standards, you have to remember this took place 20 years ago. A notable example of employee engagement was during the financial crisis of 2008. Faced with further economic challenges, Fujifilm's employees voluntarily took pay cuts or unpaid leave to help the company navigate through that tough period. The collective effort not only helped Fujifilm avoid layoffs, but demonstrated that strong sense of ownership and commitment amongst its employees. After structure and culture, income systems. Komori knew that he had to balance the entrepreneurial and innovative culture he encouraged with an emphasis on performance and results. He introduced, it's going to sound pretty typical, performance management system. He implemented KPIs. They were tied to the company's strategic goals, ensuring that everybody's performance would be assessed in relation to Fujifilm's overall mission. He paired this with 360 feedback, regular performance reviews, which were not just about assessing past performance, but also about setting future goals and development plans. And in fact, number 4, Komori really focused on leader and people development and engagement. There was a continuous learning environment where employees were encouraged to develop and track their skills and capabilities, and the company provided resources and support for their professional growth. Komori instilled a focus on leadership development to support the cultural shift within Fujifilm. Leadership programs were implemented to build the skills and capability of Fujifilm's leaders, ensuring they could guide their teams through the transformation. This commitment to human resource development and innovation became central to the Fujifilm way. To this day, Fujifilm continues to invest heavily in training and development programs designed to cultivate leadership, promote continuous learning, and encourage that culture of innovation. I know that these sound like simple fundamentals, but sometimes the hardest things to get right are the fundamentals. What made Komori extraordinary were not just his bold ideas, but the fact that he got the ordinary things right. Reflecting on Fujifilm's remarkable journey, some of Komori's decisions look like prudent, well thought out steps, while others appear almost reckless if you didn't have the ability to predict the future. This duality captures the essence of visionary leadership, getting the beautiful basics right and getting the big bets right. In fact, the story made me reflect on the concept of ambidextrous leaders who are good at both exploration and exploitation, aka growth and profitability, innovation and excellence. And perhaps what is most striking about the story is the courage it takes to be and do all of those things. In one of the articles that we read in researching for this piece on petapixel.com, they closed the article with a beautiful quote from Komori's book, Innovating Out of Crisis. Komori says that number 2 leaders use a bamboo sword, whereas number 1 leaders use steel. And what he means by this is that the number 1 leaders understand that if they lose, they will die. They can't afford to be wrong. Komori confesses to having many sleepless nights during Fuji's transformation. He acknowledges the courage and decisiveness that were required of him. His bold strategy that were emblematic of Fujifilm's innovative spirit ultimately proved successful, demonstrating that taking good risks can lead to extraordinary outcomes. The history of Fujifilm's reinvention is a testament to the power of daring leadership and strategic foresight. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Marilyn Zakhour, and you're listening to Centaur Stage Season 3, where I share with you the challenges leaders face and how they address them to inspire you to make better decisions for your organization. If you'd like to spend more time with leaders who managed great turnarounds, head over to the Best Buy and Nissan episodes of this season. Fujifilm's story wouldn't be complete without the story of its American rival, Kodak, kind of a King Kong meets Godzilla. For editorial reasons and to keep the length of this episode manageable, we have not included any details of the Kodak story in today's episode. But if you scroll back to episode 3 of the season, you can listen to the riveting story of innovation gone wrong at Kodak. Our team at Cosmic Centaurs frequently posts articles about the employee experience, leadership, and the future of work on cosmiccentaurs.com, as well as on our social media channels. So do follow us to learn more about how you can create organizations that thrive and deliver. You can subscribe to our newsletter to keep up with our news. The link is in the comments section. Join me again on our next episode, where we will explore the downfall of Nokia from mobile giant to nostalgic memory.